The Galactic Council had watched humanity for 300 years. They had studied their wars, their art, their strange customs, and their even stranger emotions. But nothing confused them more than how humans taught their young. The council members, beings of pure logic and genetic memory transfer, could not understand why humans spent decades teaching each new generation the same lessons their ancestors had learned thousands of years ago. Counselor of the species stood before the great assembly hall on Station Prime. His crystalline body reflected the light of 1,000 holographic displays, each showing different scenes from Earth and human colonies. "We have a problem," he announced to the gathered representatives. "The humans are winning every negotiation, every trade deal, and every diplomatic exchange. They are outperforming species that have existed for millions of years longer than them." A murmur spread through the assembly. The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their various forms. Some floated in suspension tanks. Others stood on multiple legs. A few existed only as projected consciousness. All of them shared one concern. Humanity was rising too fast and nobody understood why. "How is this possible?" asked Ambassador of the Empire. Her 4 eyes narrowed with suspicion. "They are barely out of their planetary cradle. Their technology is inferior to ours. They are laughably short. What advantage could they possibly have?" Pulled up a new display. It showed a human classroom on Earth. Children sat at desks while an older human stood at the front, drawing symbols on a flat surface. "This is what they call education," explained. "They spend the first quarter of their lives doing nothing but this, learning from older humans, memorizing information, practicing skills, over and over again." "Inefficient," declared the ambassador. "We simply upload knowledge directly into our offspring. No time wasted." "The transfer memories genetically," agreed. "Every is born knowing everything their ancestors knew. We have never needed teachers." "Then what is the problem?" demanded. "Change the display again." This time it showed recordings from the recent trade negotiations between the Galactic Council and the Human Federation. The human negotiators sat across from a team of the galaxy's finest diplomats. Species that had been conducting interstellar trade for millions of years faced humans who had only discovered faster-than-light travel 2 centuries ago. The assembly watched in silence as the humans won concession after concession. They watched as the alien negotiators grew confused and frustrated. They watched as the humans smiled and laughed and somehow walked away with everything they wanted. "We have analyzed these recordings thousands of times," said. "We still cannot determine how they do it. Their arguments are not logically superior. Their offers are not more generous. Yet they win, every single time." A young researcher named stepped forward. He was a species that existed as living data within mechanical bodies. "I believe I have found the answer," he said nervously, "but the council will not like it." "Speak," commanded. Activated his own display. It showed a human training facility where young humans practiced something called martial arts. An older human watched them carefully, correcting their movements, encouraging them when they failed, celebrating when they succeeded. "The humans call this person a trainer," explained, "or a teacher, or a mentor. They have many words for this role because it is central to everything they do. This person does not simply transfer information. They transfer something else, something we do not have a word for in any galactic language." "Explain," demanded. "When we upload knowledge to our offspring, we give them data," said. "When humans teach, they give something more. They give context. They give wisdom. They give the lessons that cannot be written down. Watch this recording carefully." The display showed the martial arts teacher correcting a student's stance, but slowed the recording and zoomed in on the teacher's face. "See how the teacher watches the student. See how they adjust their instruction based on the student's specific needs. This is not data transfer. This is individualized adaptation." "We can adapt our uploads," the ambassador protested. "No," said firmly. "You adapt the data. Humans adapt the method. There is a difference that we have failed to understand until now. He changed the display to show stacks of what humans called books. Humans document their lessons, not just the information but the process of teaching itself. They have created entire systems for capturing how to help others learn. They study not just what to teach but how to teach it. They have teachers who teach other teachers. They have trainers who train other trainers. The assembly fell silent as the implications sank in. For millions of years we have been transferring knowledge, continued. Humans have been transferring the ability to gain knowledge. We give our young fish. Humans teach their young how to fish. And more importantly, humans teach their young how to teach others to fish. His crystalline form flickered with confusion. But this is terribly inefficient. They waste so much time. Every generation must learn everything again. Yes, agreed. But in that process, every generation improves upon what they learned. They question, they challenge, they innovate. Our offspring know exactly what we know, nothing more. Human offspring learn from us and then ask why. They take our knowledge and push it further. He showed another recording. This one was from a human university. A professor stood before a group of young adults, explaining a complex scientific theory. One of the students raised a hand and asked a question. The professor paused, considered the question, and then admitted that they did not know the answer. But instead of ending the discussion, the professor and students began exploring the question together. This is impossible among our species, said. A cannot question genetic memory. A cannot challenge uploaded data. But humans question everything, and their teachers encourage this. They do not see student questions as threats to their authority. They see them as opportunities for everyone to learn. Ambassador leaned forward with growing interest. You are saying that the human teaching system produces individuals who can think beyond their training. Exactly, said. When our negotiators faced the humans, they relied on millions of years of accumulated strategy, but those strategies were static, unchanged. The humans recognized patterns in our behavior because our behavior never changes. We always do what we were taught. Humans sometimes do what they were taught, but they also do new things. Things we cannot predict because even they did not know they would do those things until the moment arrived. Counselor processed this information with visible discomfort. What do you propose we do about this? Took a deep breath. I propose that we learn from the humans, that we study their teaching methods, that we create our own system of learning capture. We must document not just knowledge but the process of gaining knowledge. We must create teachers of our own. A shocked silence filled the assembly hall. No species in the Galactic Council had ever used teachers. The concept was considered primitive, wasteful, unnecessary. This is ridiculous, the ambassador declared. We have built an empire spanning 10,000 worlds using our methods. We do not need to copy the practices of infant species. With respect, ambassador, replied, that empire has not expanded in over 1,000,000 years. Human territory has doubled in the last 50 years. Something they are doing is working better than what we are doing. The debate raged for hours. Some council members agreed with, others dismissed his findings as speculation. But eventually, Counselor made a decision. We will conduct an experiment, he announced. We will select volunteers from each species to participate in a human-style education program. Human trainers will document their lessons. We will capture their teaching methods. We will see if these methods can be adapted to our species. The experiment began 6 months later at a specially constructed facility on a neutral space station. Human teachers arrived to work with alien students for the first time in galactic history. The results were strange and often frustrating for everyone involved. They struggled because they could not understand why they needed to practice something they already knew. They grew angry when teachers asked them questions instead of simply providing answers. They kept trying to download the lessons directly instead of experiencing them gradually. But slowly, something began to change. The alien students started asking questions of their own. They began to see connections between ideas that their genetic memories or uploaded data had kept separate. They started to innovate. One student, after weeks of frustration, suddenly understood something that no had understood in 10 million years of existence. The teaching process had forced them to examine knowledge they had always taken for granted. In questioning it, they had improved it. The human trainers carefully documented everything. They recorded not just what they taught, but how they taught it. They noted which methods worked with which species. They created guides for teaching beings that learned in fundamentally different ways than humans. This documentation became the foundation of the learning capture system. It was a method for teaching itself, a way to take the intuitive, adaptive, personal process of human education and make it available to species that had never experienced anything like it. Within a decade, the system had spread to hundreds of worlds. Alien species that had been stagnant for millions of years began to grow again. New ideas emerged. New technologies were developed. New art forms were created. The Galactic Council reconvened to discuss the results. Counselor stood before them once again, but this time his crystalline form glowed with excitement rather than concern. "We were wrong about humanity," he admitted. "We thought their teaching methods were primitive because they were slow, but speed is not the measure of quality. The humans understood something that we missed entirely. Knowledge is not power. The ability to gain new knowledge is power. The ability to question, to challenge, to grow beyond what you were taught. That is the true advantage." Ambassador, who had once dismissed human methods as inferior, now nodded in agreement. Her species had benefited enormously from the learning capture system. "The humans gave us something more valuable than any technology," she said. "They gave us the ability to think beyond our limitations." The Human Federation representatives sat quietly through the praise. They seemed almost embarrassed by the attention. One of them, an elderly woman named Professor Sarah, finally spoke up. "We did not create this system to gain advantage," she said simply. "We created it because sharing knowledge is what humans do. We teach because we want others to succeed. That is all." The assembly fell silent. In that moment, they understood something profound about humanity. These beings, with their short lives and their inefficient methods, had achieved something no other species had managed. They had learned how to help others become better than themselves. And in sharing that gift with the galaxy, they had ensured their place among the stars forever.